for some reason. But whatever it is, we're very fortunate, and thank you for inviting us today. Could we start with a short kirtan? Is that right?
Yes, Maharaj.
Is that okay? And we have 1 hour, is that correct?
Yes, Maharaj.
And strictly 1 hour?
No, as per your wish, whatever you like means you can.
Maybe a little bit longer then. Don't want to keep you too long. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namine Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namine Namaste Sarasvate Devi Gauravani Prachari Devasesha Sanyavadi Pascharcharesha Tori Namaste Sarasvati Devi Gauravani Devasesha Sanyavani Pascharcharesha Tarine Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vatsadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vatsadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna Hare Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Srila Bhakti Caru Maharaj ki jai. Harinama Sankirtana ki jai. Srila Bab Mahamahotsav Srila Haridas Thakur ki jai. Srila Namacharya Haridasa Thakur ki jai. Srila Prabhupada Sannyasa ki jai. Agora Premanande, oh glories to the assembled devotees, oh glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga, glories to Srila Prabhupada. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pastaya Bhutale, Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namane, Namaste Saraswate Devi, Gaudavani Pracharine, Nirvasesha Sanyavari, Pastachade Shatarine, Vanchakalpa Tarubhyascha, Kripa Sindhubhyaivyacha, Patitanam Pavanebhyo, Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Hare Krishna. So, you mentioned Premavata Prabhu, a few things there regarding what we will talk about today. That's a lot to do in a short session. Our time with Srila Prabhupada, interactions with our beloved Srila Bhakti Caru Maharaj, who I think was beloved by everybody, really speaking, all Vaishnavas, any Vaishnava had love and received love from His Holiness Bhakti Caru Maharaj. The very thing which all living entities are hankering after, the thing which is lacking in this world is conditional life, genuine love. When we associate with someone who loves Srila Prabhupada to the extent which we cannot conceive of, but to the extent that Bhakti Caru Maharaj loved Srila Prabhupada, all of you, although I'm sure all of you are still feeling almost immeasurable separation from Maharaj, but still, you're the most fortunate people in the universe to have had this glorious opportunity to associate with Maharaj. Those fleeting moments, whatever it may have been, which remain forever in our consciousness, giving us that strength which we all need in our devotional service. You've heard it, I'm sure, again and again. Nothing happens by chance. Krishna has his plan. We may have ours. The pure devotees of the Lord only appear in this world for the pleasure of Krishna and their spiritual master, as did Bhakti Caru Maharaj. Such an auspicious occasion. We hear the appearance of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, how the whole world was chanting the holy names of Krishna. When Srila Bhakti Caru Maharaj left, from our vision, he never leaves really. He's always with you, with us all, by his lifetime of devotion. His heart is still with us all, giving us strength and encouragement in our bhakti. For the whole world of Vaishnavas, at least of ISKCON, which is a large number of people, was engaged in chanting Hare Krishna. Maharaj got everyone all over. We are now in France. Presently I'm in Paris. Usually I'm in New Mayapur. And Bhakti Caru Maharaj came there, as I guess you've already heard. He came there last year for the first time for quite some time. He has disciples here in France, maybe 20 or so. But Srila Prabhupada's New Mayapur was very dear to His Holiness Bhakti Caru Maharaj. And you've already heard, I won't tell it again. I believe others have already, maybe Mandakini Mataji has already described to you the wonderful pastimes, the wonderful history of Bhakti Caru Maharaj when he was GBC here in France in the late 80s, early 90s, and how he was the most instrumental in saving New Mayapur and keeping New Mayapur for Srila Prabhupada's pleasure. But he came here to New Mayapur around about 1 year ago and spent about a week here, encouraging all of his disciples and anyone come to that, with many, many devotees who came from the United Kingdom, encouraging them all to please Prabhupada. The Acharya, the Guru, is one who teaches us how to please Krishna, but that foundation is founded upon pleasing the Acharya, pleasing Srila Prabhupada, pleasing Srila Prabhupada's dear devotees like His Holiness Bhakti Caru Maharaj, but pleasing our Parampara. So he taught that here in New Mayapur last year, Devotees Association, how to really associate, how to really cultivate loving relationships between devotees as a walking example, living example of pure devotional service. Naturally, a devotee is Dirodi Rajano Priyo Priyakaro Nimatsuro Pushito. He has no enemy. He's a friend of all living entities because he's connected with Krishna and he wants everyone else to feel that connection. This is love. This is our Bhakti Caru Maharaj, always reminding us of Prabhupada and Krishna. We're very fortunate to have had his association and continued association throughout our lives, as we had with Srila Prabhupada. Maybe only a few moments of direct association. Even Srila Prabhupada himself said he only has short association with his Guru Maharaj. Not very much time-wise. It's not so much the time, but it's what we make of the time. We may not have, even Abraham Lincoln said it's not the years in one's life, but the life in one's years. It's the time, the value, how much we take advantage of that time and how much that impresses upon our lives. And what can we say? That's an individual relationship. But the more we've taken advantage of that, the more strength we can feel from those who are reservoirs of that strength in Krishna consciousness. So, as you have had so much, many of you, some of you may not have, but many of you online right now had much association with Bhakti Caru Maharaj. And that's what will sustain us. Of course, it's not just the sentiment or the memories of that association, which in itself is very incredible. Bhakti Vinod Thakur describes in Bhakti Aloka how hearing about the past times, the times of those great souls, because he cites specifically Rupa Goswami, Sanatan Goswami, Raghunath Das Goswami, and Haridas Thakur. But the same principle applies to all pure devotees of the Lord, that by hearing about them, their pastimes, their activities, one develops great confidence, one develops great determination and great satisfaction. Essential features for maintaining and growth in devotional service. So I'm sure that all of you can't forget your Guru Maharaj or your beloved godbrother, godbrother or friend, because of such a deep impression in our hearts, and that's wonderful. It's inseparable from remembering Krishna. But at the same time, and even more, you could say significant, more pleasing to Srila Prabhupada that we followed his instructions. Similarly, more pleasing to Bhakti Caru Maharaj is if we follow his will, his desires. And I'm sure all of you, those who are his disciples especially, have heard, have received, and still do hear his instructions regularly and are determined to try to fulfill his projects or his desire to please Srila Prabhupada. And Srila Prabhupada said this is his life and soul. He made the instructions of his spiritual master his life and his soul. They're everything to the pure devotee. Prabhupada quotes specifically the inspiration for his successful mission was based upon Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's commentary on Vyavasayatma Kalbadhiri Ke Kurunandana. That the spiritual master's instruction on my life and soul, they are my sadhana, they are my sadhya, they are all that matters to me. Whether I go to heaven or to hell makes no difference. I simply embrace the instructions of my spiritual master. That's all that counts. He worships the instructions of his spiritual master. They are non-different. In fact, to understand the pure devotee of the Lord, whoever it may be, the process is through following the instructions, the Vani. To actually associate with the Vapu, we go through the Vani. It's not a physical interaction simply based on sentimental platform, which is, of course, very fortunate and valuable. But to really have that association of a person, pure devotee of the Lord or Krishna, we have to go through his Vani, through his instructions. Well, whoever, this is the same thing applicable to Srila Prabhupada. And Srila Prabhupada made it quite clear that even though we don't have the physical association, we may be, that feeling of separation, that feeling of loss, that feeling of vacancy, whatever it may be in our hearts, sometimes other emotions are there too. It's focused on the object of our attachment, in this case, a pure devotee of the Lord, are very purifying. It's related to the mood of Vipalamba, feeling that intense separation. Krishna places his devotees in this situation to intensify our devotion, to draw us deeper into taking to the path of Sharanagati or surrender, realizing how small we are, how dependent, how humbling us, bringing us to this point of complete self-surrender. So Prabhupada, Bhakti Caru Maharaj, all these great devotees, how we may not understand, we may not fully understand. Why is it somehow or another they leave us? But they never leave us, never. It happens to all of us. Prabhupada said, don't think this won't happen to you. But for sure, we can all experience it can increase. The whole purpose of the spiritual master, pure devotees coming here, is to completely drown us or absorb us in Krishna consciousness. Not that we become just, what we could say, just totally mindless or totally dependent in a sense, taking things for granted in that sense of dependence, but rather they come here to awaken within us our actual pure attachment to the holy name, our pure attachment to devotional service, which is unconditional, uninterrupted, unmotivated. This is our purpose. So we'd like to thank all of you for reminding us of this. And my association with Srila Prabhupada, with Bhakti Caru Maharaj, was here, there, and many places. A little bit here in London, sitting in the house of Harivamsa Prabhu, who also left us many, many years ago. Sometimes we would go there when Bhakti Caru Maharaj was there, take prasadam, talk, hear, chant, remember, taking it for granted. Sometimes, well, here in France on Maharaj's last visit, here in India, in Calcutta, or in Vrindavan, or in Mayapur, probably a few other places if I think more carefully. Wherever it was always the same sweetness, no matter what was happening. Of course, in taking prasadam, Maharaj would always invite his godbrothers and sisters every year in Mayapur into his apartment there for prasadam, etc., etc. He just loved his godbrothers and sisters so much, and they were his life and soul. They were, you could say, his service to Prabhupada, to satisfy or to serve his godbrothers and sisters. It's not a secret, it's an open secret, you could say, but it's the gateway. Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj said, it is the gateway to Shuddha Nam, to pure devotional service, is to serve the devotees, to serve them according to their situation, but to serve them with love. And this was his message, one of his many messages to all of us. And well, the Srila Prabhupada, my first occasion of meeting Srila Prabhupada was in 1972, when Prabhupada came to London for the Rath Yatra. Srila Prabhupada loved Rath Yatra, and I'm sure that every one of you loves Rath Yatra. It's the most important festival in the preaching sense of the word. It certainly is the most important festival. And if we take it in its real truth. Now, Srila Bhakti Caru Maharaj loved to sing Gopi Gita. Tavakatam mitam tapta jivanam kavipiriditam kamashapam Shravana mangalam srimaratatam uvivinantiye purita janaha. He loved to sing Gopi Gita. And this Gopi Gita is very related to the Rath Yatra festival because it's the mood of separation of the residents of Vrindavan, the gopis particularly, sung by the Radharani and the gopis when Krishna left them in the Rasa Leela dance, forlorn, lost, searching for him in every twig and every leaf. Where is Krishna? There's nothing else in their lives, simply searching for Krishna. So this is also very significant in the Rath Yatra festival because King Prataparudra gained the association of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Although he could see him with physical eyes, it's not the same of having the heart association. He gained that, or at least he showed us by his behavior, how we could gain that association of the Lord. And the trigger, in a sense, of course, it was the mercy of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya and the humility which the king was manifesting, which enabled him to receive the mercy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. But at the same time, he was chanting when he entered into the garden there in Jagannath Puri, where Lord Chaitanya was taking rest during the Rath Yatra festival, and began to sing the Gopi Gita. And Lord Chaitanya immediately awoke, hearing the sound of the King Prataparudra singing Gopi Gita. And Lord Chaitanya was overwhelmed in ecstatic emotion. Carry on chanting, carry on chanting, he cried, as King Prataparudra was singing Gopi Gita. It's like Bhakti Caru Maharaj, one of his most famous, let's say, gifts of kirtan or bhajan to the world was his singing of Gopi Gita. And King Prataparudra carried on. And of course, when he came to that verse of unlimited love and compassion expressed by Srimati Radharani, of spreading the message of Godhead all over the world. This is the most magnanimous activity. And then Lord Chaitanya and King Prataparudra embraced and danced, of course. Anyway, that story most of you are familiar with. But this is Rath Yatra. It is the process of bringing Krishna back to Vrindavan. This is the business of all the acharyas. And it, of course, that Rath Yatra is such that it brings us all, along with the fulfillment of Radharani's desire. We're all taken back to Godhead if we absorb ourselves in this mission of bringing Krishna or fulfilling Radharani's desire. This is the objective of our movement, to fulfill that desire. And that same Srimati Radharani who pined for the association of Krishna constantly, that same Radharani has appeared as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, or at least in the mood of Radharani, Krishna has appeared. So Prabhupada came to London for the Rath Yatra, and at that time we had to go as to, can't possibly talk about it, all these things in the short time we have. But basically speaking, that was our first time of seeing Srila Prabhupada when he arrived at Heathrow Airport in London, July 1972. And he stayed for maybe 10 days, 2 weeks in London. During that time, we received initiation. The initiation was on Trafalgar Square, of all places. But that's a long story, and we will not tell it today. But the divine mercy, almost inconceivable how souls such as ourselves, and many of you, especially if you're Ujjain or somewhere in India, born of Indian parents, cannot imagine what it was like to be born in a family in England, meat-eating family, addicted to sense gratification, growing up in a society which is full of nothing but sense gratification. There was no question of, piety from a material perspective was there in terms of relative piety, but not real piety. No idea what religious principles are. Nothing. When Prabhupada came to America, he said, he wondered, how is it possible? How will these people possibly follow these regulated principles? He didn't even said, I didn't think they would be able to. But by the purity and the love of Srila Prabhupada, mercy of Krishna, we see millions of Westerners who are now embracing the path of pure devotional service, all by Srila Prabhupada's mercy. And Bhakti Caru Maharaj, I know sometimes when we were in London together at the dinner which would be held after the great Janmastami festival at Bhaktivedanta Manor, and they would have their program, recognition program for all the volunteers. Oh, every year I was there, which wasn't that many, a few times, Bhakti Caru Maharaj would look around the audience and see 99% Indian devotees. Wonderful. We're not saying there's nothing wrong with that. That's brilliant. But he would say, where are the Westerners? And he would request all of the devotees, you please, next year. Sometimes he would threaten them, I will not come back unless I see Western devotees here. And he would request them, bring English people, bring Westerners, bring other races here. This is international society. We've come to the Western world. Prabhupada came to the Western world. He preached to everyone, but he particularly preached to the Westerners. And when he went to anywhere else, Africa, he preached I said to the same thing in African. I'll tell you a secret. When I was serving in Africa, as you mentioned it, I wasn't there for long, about a year and a half. Well, I was there for a little while. Ramananda Swami at that time, told me he asked Prabhupada, and Prabhupada said, one time he said, when you're with the temple here in Nairobi, he said, do not invite the Indian people. They will come automatically, he said. We're here to preach to the local black people. That was his thing. Sometimes we forget this is our mission. It is a sacrifice to go out of our way. Why did Bhakti Caru Maharaj, leave the world where he did? It's unique. What is he doing there? He's just trying to establish a project there, which he believes, he's inspired in the heart, to help bring people to Krishna consciousness in those, as Prabhupada described that part of the world, the far distant place, far distant corner of the world in Florida. He specifically said Florida, far distant corner of the world, far away from Mayapur. But that's the heart of a pure devotee. He brings Mayapur and Vrindavan everywhere. So Prabhupada brought that to London. When he was in London, one devotee asked him, while we were there at that time, it's a devotee named Krishna Vesh. She lives in England now. And she asked Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada, is Bhagavad Gita spoken in hell? And Prabhupada said, yes, we are speaking here in London. This is hell. We didn't think like that. We thought hell, London was heaven. It was like a worshipable place. Prabhupada came. We had never heard of anything like Vrindavan or Mayapur. What to speak of Ujjain? We'd never heard of any of these places. They were like unheard of. Even if you heard of India, they were unheard of. And Prabhupada brought this to the world. He's brought Vrindavan to the world. The carrier of the holy dham. Where he brought that holy dham to a dam hole called London. And we had such memories and experiences of Srila Prabhupada in 1973 when he came to London, just after we got back to Vedanta Manor. He stayed 2 or 3 months at the manor. It's incredible. You can imagine. A pure devotee. No one in the world reckoned, just like other than the fortunate souls who had the association and heard about Bhakti True Maharaj, the rest of the world knows nothing. They're so unfortunate. And it's our duty now to help fulfill this mission of making the world fortunate. Making the world fortunate. So today, on this holy day of Tirobhav, of Namacharya, Haridas Thakur, I'd like to share with you some little insights, little thoughts, absorptions, because all the devotees are representatives in the sense of Haridas Thakur, because we're all trying to chant, develop pure devotion through chanting, spread the holy names, please Krishna by chanting his holy names. So I'd like to share something, if that's okay. Can we share now? Is that okay?
Yes, yes, Maharaj.
Back to the screen. There we go. We'll start. Can you see this? Can you see it?
No, Maharaj, you can share. You can share your own screen.
How does that work now? Let's see. Share screen. I don't know. Let me see how this works. Can you see now?
No, Maharaj. Still, we are not able to see.
How we do this? Yeah, I'm a bit ignorant on the computer. Oh, don't do that, please. I've lost everything. I don't know what to do now. Maybe Rasikananda can help me. He's expert at these things. Whoops.
Yeah, you can go to share. What you want to share some PPT?
I want to share PowerPoint.
Yeah, Maharaj, you can go to share. You can start the PPT at the background. You can just click on the PPT. And then this screen, there is an option share screen. The green color option is there, share screen.
Well, I can't be on the same page at the same time. I'm pressing share screen now. That doesn't do anything, does it? Oh,
You're not able to share.
I don't know.
Yeah, now it's working.
I can't see it. That's the only problem. Oh, can you see it now?
Yeah, Maharaj. Now we are able to see.
So please tell me clearly if you can't see it. Make a sign or something. I'll keep my eyes open now.
Yeah.
I'll just move this box out of the way so I can read it too. Oh, I can't do that. Maybe I can press that. Yeah, Hare Krishna. Srila Namacharya Haridas Thakur ki jai. And don't forget, Bhaktivinoda Thakur said, by remembering Haridas Thakur, we can develop all the necessary qualities, characteristics to progress in our spiritual lives. They appear in this world for this reason, to give their association, unlike us, who may appear into this world for various other reasons, especially myself, simply for material sense enjoyment and sinful activities. And Haridas Thakur, very mercifully, as we may have heard, we hear sometimes that Haridas Thakur is Lord Brahma. He's many other things besides Lord Brahma, as we know, and as we'll hear. One of the aspects of Haridas Thakur is Lord Brahma, who in his, let's say, the build-up to his appearing as Haridas Thakur was his behavior tinged with pride in grudge, and how he prayed in Navadvip to the Lord to please deliver him from pride. And the Lord reciprocated with him very kindly. So we'll come on to that in a minute, but we'll start here with a verse from Chaitanya. No, we won't. That's not the first verse. How do I go backwards? That was the first verse. I'm not sure how I do that. I got a problem. Just give me a second. I'm trying to go to the previous. What do I do? This one here? There we go. Thank you. So this is the pranams from Chaitanya Charitamrita to Haridas. And wherever you are, let us chant this with all our hearts. I don't know where you all are. Most of you are probably in India or London or somewhere. And some are in Australia and some are in Europe and different places. Namami Haridasam Tam Chaitanyam Tam Chatat Prabham Samstitam apiyan murting Svanke kritva anartaya. Let me offer my respectful obeisances unto Haridas Thakur and his master, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who danced with the body of Haridas Thakur on his lap. But let us offer our respectful obeisances to Haridas Thakur. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu derives great pleasure from glorifying his devotees. And among the devotees, Haridas Thakur is the foremost. The transcendental qualities of Haridas Thakur are innumerable and unfathomable. One may describe a portion of them, but to count them all is impossible. I'm sure you can all say the same thing about Bhakti Caru Maharaj. All pure devotees, they're unfathomable. Their qualities are unlimited, unending, because they're connected to the reservoir of all qualities, Lord Sri Krishna. In the Chaitanya Mangala, now known as Chaitanya Bhagavat, of course, Srila Vrindavan Das Thakur has described the attributes of Haridas Thakur to some extent. No one can describe all the qualities of Haridas Thakur. One may say something about them just to purify himself. This is another secret of glorification of the devotees. We hear about how purifying Krishna Katha is upon our hearts, cleansing the heart of all the dirt accumulated for years. How the Lord cleanses the heart of those devotees who are engaged in such practical hearing and chanting. But even more potent is hearing and glorifying the pure devotees of the Lord. Why? Because it's more pleasing to Krishna. Krishna is so happy, as any person is, when they hear the glorification of their son or daughter, someone who is most dear to them. They are so pleased. The devotees of the Lord are more dear to Krishna than his very self. You can ask Durvasa Muni if you want to find out more about that. He found out how dear the devotees are to the Lord. So this is such an important practice in devotional service. Lord Chaitanya described it by chanting the holy name and serving the devotees. These two processes, the actual key, they're the essence of devotional service. Everything can be achieved through these two processes. So Haridas Thakur is a perfect manifestation of both of these activities. Service to the devotees in humility and chanting the holy name of Krishna. Unlimited qualities. It's like the sky. We were looking at the stars the other day in New Mayapur. We were actually thinking of Bhakti Caru Maharaj when he was there. It was in the middle of the night. I was with some devotee. We're looking in the sky, seeing countless stars. The more you look, the more stars you see. The more stars you see. And the more we think of pure devotees, the more qualities we recognize therein. Chaitanya Bhagavat, I assure you that one who simply chants the name of Haridas without offense will certainly attain the abode of Krishna. What to speak of his touch? Just by seeing Haridas, one is released from the bondage of fruitive activities. One can attain the abode of Krishna, released from the bondage of fruitive activities. Indeed, even if one sees a person who has taken shelter of Haridas, he is freed from material bondage. Everyone, whether elevated or wretched, automatically forgets about mundane life when he sees the lotus feet of Srila Haridas Thakur. And it's amazing, isn't it, when we're with sincere, serious, advanced devotees, how when we're in their presence, we forget all of our problems, we forget all of our attachments, all of the issues of this world, our desires to achieve material things, etc. They all disappear. It's like the fog disappears in the presence of the sun. The secret is to stay. The devotees are just like suns, moons, we could say, even perhaps a better example, moons in the sky, who are just bringing relief to all of us in the full moons. So beautiful. And when we're in their presence, who cares for the stars in the sky? Who cares? They're insignificant in comparison to the full moon in the sky. So we stay in the presence of the full moons, these benediction moons which shine into our hearts and cleanse our hearts, forgetting it. When Arjuna, well, that's a good example, when Arjuna was feeling great separation from Krishna and feeling great lamentation, and it's described in the Bhagavatam how all the trash in his mind dissipated when he remembered the instructions of Krishna, which he received on the Battle of Kurukshetra. Remembering those wonderful instructions gives us that inspiration and strength and clears away. After all, we should do in our lives now, think how we can please Bhakti Caru Maharaj, how we can please our spiritual masters, how we can please them by acting in a way that they would be happy. Very simple. Naturally, there's sentiment, but the main thing is let's get on with that business. Within about 3 weeks of Srila Prabhupada's departure, no less, beginning of December, we started the Prabhupada book marathon. Within a few weeks, we had the biggest book marathon in, up to then anyway, in history of ISKCON. The devotees were so enthusiastic to please Srila Prabhupada. The secret. So Haridas Thakur, today, everyone, whether elevated or wretched, automatically forgets about mundane life when he sees the lotus feet of Srila Haridas Thakur. Oops. People would gather around him just to see the unrestricted tears of Krishna prema that flowed profusely from his eyes, drenching his entire body. Even the strictest atheist marveled at his behavior. Horripilation swelled across his body like thousands of blooming lotus flowers, and even Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva were amazed by his devotion. Now, this is quite an interesting statement, and you'll see this comes up a few times in the short reading which we're having. I've just selected a few verses out of a very long presentation. And this one is interesting in the sense, in many senses, but not just the tears of Krishna prema which flowed from his eyes, Krishna prema. The purpose of Lord Chaitanya's appearing in this world is to taste Krishna prema along with congregational chanting of the holy names of Krishna. And Haridas Thakur was his prime representative in chanting the holy names of Krishna, that even Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva were amazed by his devotion. Yet we hear that Lord Brahma is Haridas Thakur. So there's a little bit more to it than meets the eye, you could say, that Brahma and Shiva, Lord Shiva, are amazed by his devotion. And we can understand that Lord Brahma certainly entered into the association of Haridas Thakur in order to become freed, permanently freed from the horrors of pride, the great dangers of pride which he was affected by in Braj Leela. And now he's praying in Navadvip, please free me. The Lord appears, assuring him in his next lifetime, next appearance in this world, that Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, that he would be his chief assistant in spreading the Yuga Dharma, the holy name. And he would appear, the Lord told him, he would appear in a lowly birth, free of false ego. And his name would be Haridas, and he would be chanting 300,000 names a day. He gave him initiation in Navadvip before he even appeared. Very transcendental initiation. And then, of course, Haridas Thakur appeared in that family, a Muslim family in Buran in Bangladesh, now Bangladesh, and very shortly left that situation to take up his mission or his service to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, way before Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared in this world. 36 years before Mahaprabhu appeared, Haridas Thakur appeared in this world. Haridas Thakur was the actual knower of the transcendental mellows related with Krishna, and he is the principal teacher for understanding rasa shastras, or literature filled with the transcendental mellows related with Krishna. Another, you could say, confirmation of his transcendental position, his special position in Gaur Lila. He's not just someone who's just teaching Yuga Dharma, that's for sure. And we know in the holy name the Lord has invested all of his transcendental opulences. But Haridas Thakur himself is tasting the full mellows of pure devotional service related with Krishna. He's a knower of those mellows. And he's teaching those mellows. He's giving those mellows, understanding what is Rasa Shastra. Rasa Shastra is not accessible to those in Aishwarya Bhav. They may hear about it in the sense theoretically, but they certainly cannot fully understand it, or what to speak of taste those transcendental mellows. Is this fine? Are we okay there? I think so. Something came up on the screen just now. Okay. So, yeah, he's by following in the path of Haridas Thakur, anyone who follows in the same path of Haridas Thakur becomes eligible by the mercy of the Lord, of course, becomes eligible to also enter into those rasas of pure devotional service. Those in Aishwarya Bhav do not have, they may have some understanding, but not the relish, not to be able to fully understand, realize those mellows of pure devotion. So Haridas is a very, very special associate of the Lord. In the Chaitanya Bhagavat, all glories to the great devotee Haridas Thakur. By remembering Haridas, all one's sinful reactions are vanquished. There he is. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki jai. They didn't have cameras in those days, but I think no one have a problem in feeling Haridas Thakur by looking at this deity in Siddhabakal of Haridas Thakur in Jagannath Puri. When it comes to chanting, the topmost devotee is Srila Haridas Thakur. This is from Prema Vaivarta. And it was he who propagated the supreme truth about the holy name. He preached as well as practiced chanting the holy name. Hence, he is the Acharya of the holy name, or the Nama Acharya. Whoever chants the Lord's name following in Srila Haridas Thakur's footsteps will achieve the highest perfection in it. We pray to Haridas Thakur as a beautiful deity of Namacharya Haridas Thakur. I don't know whose this is. Maybe this is Chandramoli's deity, Chandramoli Swami or Madhava Prabhu. They all have beautiful deities of Haridas Thakur like this. And here's a prayer of Haridas, which we could ourselves, perhaps we'd like to chant it in our, let's say, our endeavors to chant the Maha Mantra, especially during japa. And this is from Harinam Chintamani. Dasa paradayena hridayena pase kripa kari Mahaprabhu majinam raste. O Mahaprabhu, please be merciful to me, so that the 10 offenses never touch my heart, and I can always remain absorbed in the rasa of the holy name. This is a prayer of Haridas Thakur himself. So it's a nice one to remember. Maybe you can take a snap of it or something if you don't know it. And of course, the pastimes of Haridas Thakur are numerous, innumerable. We just hear a few of them in Chaitanya Bhagavat, Chaitanya Charitamrita, and and other literatures, maybe in Advaita Prakash, and other literatures are there, giving some little indications of the greatness of Haridas Thakur. Some are revealed, of course, by our acharyas, just to give us enough. How much can we manage anyway? Like little tiny insects, we can only hold so much. But whatever it is, the pastimes of Haridas Thakur can hold on to these and learn the lessons to be learned by his pastimes. Then, of course, the root essence is, we've already heard, you could say in a sense, is serving Chaitanya Mahaprabhu by spreading the Yuga Dharma with pridelessness. But here we have another essential lesson in this world, and we don't have time to tell the pastime, but the essential teaching therein. By remembering this pastime of Haridas Thakur delivering Lakir Hirabai, the kind of prostitute known as a prostitute sent by Ramachandra Khan, and how Haridas Thakur delivered her after 3 days of her endeavoring to entice him into illicit sexual activities. He was undisturbed by her endeavors, and not only that, he delivered her from her fallen condition to pure devotional service. And there she is surrendering to Haridas Thakur. And Haridas Thakur knew everything about the whole scheme of Ramchandra Khan. And he said, I only stayed here because I knew you were coming, and therefore I stayed here to deliver you. And then after that, of course, there's a nice, this is in Benapole, where this activity took place, in Bangladesh. Some of you may have been there, across the border, just across the border from Bengal. And this is a deity on the left side of Hirabai, and on the right side there is Haridas Thakur. And Haridas Thakur left Hirabai there. I took the picture out. I do have many pictures, but picture of Haridas Thakur. Ooh, what happened there? I stroked the screen. Now you've got a preview of some of the other events. There we go. Yeah, they're in Benapole. This is a picture of Hirabai, Lakir Hirabai on the left. She was a very expensive so-called prostitute. And Haridas Thakur then left her there, left that place. He said, I would have left earlier, but I knew you were coming. So he left her there to continue. He bestowed upon her Krishna Prema, and then he left that place with her chanting 3 lakhs of names. And he then proceeded on his journey here and there to spread the holy name of Krishna. This is all before Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared in the world. So he was already performing his sadhana, you could say, or his sadhya, his devotional service to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, establishing the Yuga Dharma, even before Mahaprabhu revealed it to the world. So that was one of his first, you could say, converts. She wasn't, or imagine if we had to chant 300,000 names a day, we would not do, I don't think we could do it. That's approximately 180 something rounds per day or thereabouts, maybe something like that. And we can barely chant 16 rounds. And even if we mumble or mechanically chant those rounds, it's very hard to be attentive. But Haridas Thakur was attentive at every moment to Krishna, to the holy name of the Lord. He never deviated for a moment, even in the presence of the most beautiful girl. And Prabhupada described this, that if we take shelter of Haridas Thakur, that we can be protected from the allurement of illicit sex life, or any sex life, come to that. Completely free from this desire, which includes all kinds of other expanded desires from the initial sex desire. And this is, again, if we take shelter, as Haridas Thakur took shelter of the holy name, keep chanting the holy names, don't stop. And then after some time, Haridas Thakur, we heard the pastime of Gopal Chakravarti. We can't tell that right now. How he was also in the house of Govardhan and Hiranya Majumdar, and how he offended Haridas, etc. But Haridas took no offense, and he was explaining how the wonderful chanting of the holy name, even in Namabas, even in reflective chanting, which is not completely pure, but it's not offensive, even by such chanting itself, one can attain liberation. And of course, Gopal Chakravarti didn't agree. But anyway, he eventually came to his senses also. that Haridas Thakur was teaching. And Raghunath Das was a recipient of those teachings. He was a small boy in the house of the Majumdars, and he received the mercy of Haridas. Haridas was basically like his Siksha guru. So then onwards, Haridas went to Shantipur, where he associated with Advaita Charya in Shantipur, and Advaita Charya then gave Haridas Thakur the Shradapatra plate and then arranged for his accommodation in a cave-like dwelling on the banks of the Ganga in Pulia. And there Haridas Thakur was chanting day and night, chanting the holy names of Krishna. And people were coming around by the thousand as they were in Benapur. When Ramchandra Khan was becoming envious, the same thing happened in Pulia. As he was chanting and chanting, many people would come to offer their respects to Haridas, not just Hindus, but Muslims also. And the local Muslim Qazi became very envious and angry because this man was born a Muslim, and now this is the highest, like heresy is terrible, that now he is preaching the Hindu religion and even converting Muslims. This is the greatest sin. He immediately reported to Nawab, the king, Hussein, that this man, born Muslim, is now preaching against their religion. He should be punished, arrested, take him in. So they arrested him. The king sent his men, they arrested him, threw him in jail. Of course, we hear about in jail how he delivered all the other inmates. How he told them, just stay where you are and chant Hare Krishna. Don't think about getting out of the mundane jail in the sense that you're thinking about it. You're already out of it because you're remembering Krishna. This whole point is to remember Krishna, not to adjust the material world to our liking. That is completely nothing to do whatsoever with our real purpose of life. Our purpose of life is to stop trying to adjust the world to our liking, but to adjust our lives to Krishna's liking. So here you are, you're remembering Krishna, and that's perfection of life, somehow or another, even if externally everything's going crazy. You know, things are not what materially speaking we like them to be. We're stuck in a prison or we're stuck in lockdown, which probably you are right now. If you're in India, I don't know how it is there, but in many countries it's like that. You can't go out. In France now, you can't go out your door without a mask on your face, you know, as if everyone's a criminal or something, a bandit. We're all in different prisons. This is how material world is like. We're all in lockdown. We're all locked down under the guise of Maya, under the control of Maya. And Haridas Thakur is freeing us. The devotees are freeing us from our chains in this material world. We don't want to get free. We think that their business is to help us to improve our state of affairs in the material world, but it's not. Their business is to get us out of this material world forevermore, to help us to realize we don't belong in this world. And the process is so sweet, so nectarian, as we were hearing Bhakti Caru Maharaj chanting so ecstatically before we came online here now. I don't know where that was. I guess it was in Mayapur somewhere. So blissfully chanting the holy name, because thousands of devotees all absorbed, completely oblivious of what's going on in the world around them, as they're focused on chanting the holy name. This is Haridas Thakur. So even though he was arrested, he didn't care. Wherever a devotee is Vaikuntha, is the spiritual world. Krishna's there because they're completely depending on Krishna by chanting his holy names. Yes, at the Dum Kirti Antaman. So Haridas Thakur was totally absorbed in chanting wherever, even when he was brought before the Nawab in the court. Now this is a painting, you may have seen it in the book called Namacharya by Rupa Vilas Prabhu. I don't know. This is a painting of Haridas Thakur. You could say artist licensed there a little bit. But I had this painting, personally, I had this painting painted in Jagannath Puri by one of the artists of the Jagannath Puri temple. And he did I was going to do a whole series, I only did 3 or 4. But this is one of them, of the pastimes of Haridas Thakur in the court of the Nawab, and the Qazi is all there. And they're listening to the case of Haridas, and eventually, of course, they punish him. Although the Nawab was somewhat impressed, to say the least, by the saintliness of Haridas, and even by his arguments. But the Qazis were not so convinced, and they were adamant that this Haridas should be punished. He's preaching Hinduism, And why then, therefore, if it's all the same God, why don't you preach the Quran like all Muslims? But Haridas was resolute to continue chanting the Maha Mantra. No matter if you cut my body into millions of pieces, I will continue to chant the holy name of Krishna. So the Nawab had no choice but to accept the judgment of the Qazis, and he was sentenced to death by being whipped and beaten in the marketplaces. And as you're probably familiar with his story, they tried their level best to beat him to death, but Haridas was not dying. "Oh, Haridas," said the guards, the soldiers who were trying to beat him. "Haridas, Haridas." They were apparently dead. They were completely exhausted. "Oh, Haridas, please, Haridas." Haridas said, "What's the problem?" I said, "If you don't die, Haridas, we may die because our master may kill us for failing to kill you." Oh, Haridas was so scared. And Haridas said, "Why don't you tell me earlier? I would have died immediately if I'd known that my living would cause you pain." So apparently he died. He wasn't dead, but he looked dead, and they thought they'd succeeded. And they took him off to the Nawab, and the Qazis were there. "Well, he's dead. Good. Now what to do?" The Nawab said, "Bury him." "No, bury him. He's dead." The Qazis said, "No way. How can we give this sinful person the privilege of being buried like all pious Muslims so that he may go to heaven? No, let him go to hell like the Hindus. Throw him into the Ganges. Let him rot in hell." So, okay, they tied him up with balls and chains, and you could hardly move him. He weighed 100,000 tons, practically speaking, in one sense. But eventually they managed to get him into the Ganga and threw him in with his chains on, thinking now he's gone forevermore to hell. Teach those Hindus a lesson. However, I've skipped over this anyway. We've already said this, so we'll skip on. If one simply remembers the name of Haridas, not to mention his terrible ordeal at the hands of the Muslims, one becomes free from one's own pain and misery. Isn't that nice? Just remember that, whatever you're going through. Remember Haridas Thakur and his terrible ordeal at the hands of the Muslims. Most certainly, Srila Haridas Thakur was one of the closest and most important associates of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Chaitanya Chandra. That's another pastime. So what happened then? He went into the river Ganga. We'll hear about that in a minute. Or maybe, I don't know if I've taken out the verse. Maybe I did. But it's the verse which describes how Ganga Devi, Ganges River, was praying to have the embrace of Haridas Thakur. She wanted to embrace him and have this association of Haridas Thakur. So now her desires are being fulfilled by the grace of the Nawab, and now Ganga has her in her arms, carrying Haridas down the river, Ganges, down, back to Pulia. And at that point, Ganga Devi released all of the chains and placed Haridas Thakur back on the shore in Pulia, where he returned to his cave-like dwelling and continued chanting the Maha Mantra. Wherever we are, one can keep chanting the holy names. One will always be protected, even in the most greatest danger. He taught this example again and again. Nirantara Namalau. Vrindavan Das Thakur said the main point of this pastime is this point. Nirantara Namalau, to always chant the holy name of Krishna no matter what situation we're in. And especially when we think we're in good situations. That's more dangerous than bad ones. We think, oh, now Krishna's very kind to me. Now I've got what I want. Ha ha. Not exactly. If we're very fortunate, Krishna will take it away. If we're thinking like that. We can think like that in a sense, but if we forget Krishna and start to enjoy what Krishna has given us, that's very dangerous. We get proud of our knowledge with this, with that. So if we're fortunate, Krishna will take it away. So as we know from the pastimes of King Priyavrata, Brahma himself, and many other situations which we see in the Bhagavatam, where it's describing how great devotees, when they're having to take up big responsibilities, they pray to the Lord that they not become overwhelmed with pride. And in the case of Vasudeva Vipra, when Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu delivered Vasudeva Vipra in Kurmakshetra, Vasudeva Vipra was also afraid that he might become famous because of his deliverance by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu told him, you just keep chanting, keep chanting, keep chanting. Always chant the holy name and you will not become overwhelmed with pride. Constant chanting of the holy name. I just this Nirantara Namalau to keep chanting. Later on, we hear how Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, in the house of Srila Thakur, how when he was calling his disciples, his followers, his devotees up one by one and glorifying them, if he had thousands of tongues, one after the other, and explain to all the devotees their glories. To explain to the devotees the glories of devotees is very wonderful service, very wonderful service, to glorify such personalities as Srila Bhakti Caru Maharaj in the presence of devotees is such a wonderful act of devotion, a great act of good, of mercy upon other living entities. So Lord Chaitanya himself was doing this. He took great pleasure in glorifying his devotees. So he was glorifying Haridas Thakur at one point in time. Hardly anyone knew him because he was a newcomer to Mayapur. He'd been living in Pulia. And when Lord Chaitanya started his Sankirtan movement, Haridas Thakur started to take part because Advaitacharya was his close associate. They would go together. They prayed for Lord Chaitanya's appearance even in this world. Haridas was also praying, not just Advaita. So Haridas was there, and Lord Chaitanya is glorifying when he explained when you were being whipped in that marketplaces by those Nawab soldiers. It was I who protected you. I sent Sudarshan, but Sudarshan couldn't do anything because you wouldn't let Sudarshan come near to kill them. So I personally came and protected you. I placed my back on your back. And Lord Chaitanya then turned around and showed his back to all the devotees in Srivasangam. And they were shocked to see whip marks all the way down Lord Chaitanya's back. This is how the Lord loves Haridas Thakur. He gave his own back, you could say, to protect Haridas Thakur. He was such a dear associate of the Lord. If one simply remembers the name of Haridas, we've read that already. And then, of course, the other pastimes, many pastimes with the snake, pastimes with Maya Devi took place there. I'll just read a little bit here. I can't read this. As Maya Devi herself is speaking here. I have previously captivated the mind of even Brahma, not to speak of others. Your mind alone have I failed to attract. Another fascinating statement. My dear sir, you are the foremost devotee. Simply seeing you and hearing you chant the holy name of Krishna purifies my consciousness. Even Maya Devi has become purified by the association of Haridas. They're all hankering. Brahma, Shiva, Ganga, Maya, they're all hankering for Haridas's association. This is what's going on. It's becoming one by association. What to speak of others, even Krishna, the son of Nanda Maharaj, personally descends to taste the nectar of love of Godhead in the form of chanting of Hare Krishna. What is the wonder if the maidservant of Krishna, his external energy, begs for love of God? Without the mercy of the devotee and without the chanting of the holy name of the Lord, love of Godhead cannot be possible. Hare Krishna. And Chaitanya Bhagavat again, one who associates with Haridas even for even a fraction of a moment will certainly attain shelter at the lotus feet of Krishna. Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva always desire to associate with a devotee like Haridas. The demigods headed by Brahma always hanker to become glorious by obtaining the association of a Mahabhagavat devotee like Haridas. Amazing. Haridas was born in a low-class family. This is what we mentioned just now. I'm not going to read it again. It's a common thing. We're all born in varieties of low-class families. And this is how Haridas, by example, is showing us that anyone, no matter what our birth, can become a pure devotee of the Lord. There is no disqualification of birth. We just need the mercy of a pure devotee of the Lord and take that mercy by absorbing ourselves and following their instructions, giving up our lives to try to spread their mission, whatever that may be. Giving our lives to their instructions. In the case of Srila Prabhupada, is to spread Krishna consciousness all over the world. This is the secret of love of Godhead. It doesn't come from our mechanical execution of self-chosen activities. It comes when we dedicate our lives to the service of our Gurudev. It's very simple. Love of God, it is something bestowed upon us when Krishna, out of his causeless mercy, the Ladini Shakti, descends into our, you could say, into our heart and become eligible by the mercy of the Lord, by the mercy of the Lord's devotees, Ladini Shakti, the internal potency. And that we enter into that internal potency is by the mercy of the internal potency that we can understand Krishna, not by our own endeavors. And that is when Radharani is pleased, as Prabhupada said in his poem, when he's pleased with the devotee, is not by our, like our mechanical, I'm going to chant 192 rounds. It doesn't work like that. That was his sadhana. Lord Gauranga gave it to him as his specific sadhana. We have our sadhana. We should dedicate ourselves to that. Wherever we are, whether we're in Ujjain or whether we're in whatever, in Canada, whether in America, whether in England, whether in Africa or China, wherever it is, dedicate ourselves to that sadhana, that instruction of our spiritual master. This is the secret. The Lord cleanses our hearts and reveals the truth, the real truth, not just theoretical truth, but reveals himself unto the devotee who's dedicated himself. It's his choice, but he does it. The demigods desire the touch of Haridas. Even Mother Ganga desires that Haridas immerse in her waters. There's another statement there. By the Supreme Lord, will of the Lord, Thakur Haridas appeared in a low-class Muslim family. Generally, human beings desire to become purified by either touching the demigods or taking bath in the Ganga. Now, those who are of Indian birth all know more than anyone about this. And even when they meet devotees, they also ask, please give me blessings. They want some material benediction or freedom from sinful reaction or something. They don't realize what real good fortune is. But what to speak of the demigods headed by Lord Brahma? Even the most sanctified Ganga, who emanates from the lotus feet of Vishnu, desires to become glorious by the touch of Mahabhagavat, Paramahamsa, Vaishnavacharya, Haridas Thakur, who is the representative of all the demigods. Hare Krishna. Lord Chaitanya then is in the house of Srivas Thakur, where Lord Chaitanya says, I quote out, Haridas, look at me, your body and birth is superior to mine. Hare Krishna. Your class and caste is more elevated than mine. And this Haridas is born in a low-class Muslim family. But Lord Chaitanya is saying, actually, why? Because you're no longer, that's not your class anymore. You are the Yuga Dharma Acharya. You are completely absorbed in chanting the holy name of Krishna constantly, non-stop, day and night. You have no other business in life. Preaching the holy name, chanting the holy names, glorifying the holy names. Worshipping the holy names, Manmana Bhavamad Bhakto, same thing in Bhagavad Gita, always absorbed in thinking of the holy name, always worshipping the holy, bowing down to the holy name, spreading the holy name everywhere. This is the business of Haridas Thakur. Gora, Gora, Gora. Oh Lord, I have known. I know, I'm not going to read this one. This is another one of Haridas's intense humility, an emblem of humility, an emblem of tolerance. We saw the tolerance of Haridas Thakur being beaten, unlending tolerance. He was smiling at the guards and just smiling because he's absorbed in the holy name and praying, my Lord, please shower your mercy on these men. Please deliver them to Krishna consciousness. He was thinking like that. One who hears this pastime of Haridas Thakur with proper faith will certainly enjoy the fruit of Krishna Prema. These words are not my concoction, but the bold declaration of all scripture. One is sure to experience the bliss of devotional service to Lord Krishna if one lends oral reception to the transcendental activities of the pure devotees of the Supreme Lord. All glorious to Haridas Thakur, a giant amongst the Vaishnavas. By remembrance of him, one is freed of all sinful reactions. Now, freed of sinful reactions doesn't just mean I do nonsense and get free of reaction. It really means, as we hear in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, to become freed not just of the parabdhan reactions or even the aparabdhas, but freed of the tendencies and the seeds of sin. To become freed of desire to commit sinful activity. This is the effect of associating with a pure devotee. And of course, awakening with us the desire for pure devotional service simultaneously. And there are many other pastimes. We've skipped over many. But we're now in Jagannath Puri, the place of Srila Bhakti, where Haridas Thakur was given by Lord Chaitanya to continue his chanting of the holy names in that humble abode, which is enriched with pure prema, the prema which was churned by the presence of Haridas Thakur. When you go there, you can feel his presence and the prema almost emanating from the form of Haridas Thakur. One becomes drowned in that atmospheric situation. And so Haridas stayed there for his entire duration of time when he was in, except for when he would go out, of course, to chant or do kirtan and Rathayatra and this and that. He was a great dancer. Haridas was a great dancer. So there he remained in that special place. Every day Lord Chaitanya would come to see him and send prasadam to him every day to the Bhakti. And here's a nice statement. Lord Chaitanya was glorifying Haridas. This is painting of Siddha Bhakti. Some behave very well but do not preach the cult of Krishna consciousness, whereas others preach but do not behave properly. You simultaneously perform both duties in relation to the holy name by your personal behavior and by your preaching. Therefore, you are the spiritual master of the entire world, for you are the most advanced devotee in the world. This sounds a little bit like, I think we could say the same thing if we think about Bhakti Caru Maharaj. I think it totally applies to him. You both preach the cult of Krishna consciousness, and you behave. Who behaves better than? Perfect example of Vaishnava etiquette, behavior in every respect, and preaching Krishna consciousness. Same thing with Haridas Thakur. The same thing we see in Srila Bhakti Caru Maharaj. So wonderful, most advanced devotee in the world. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu exalted Haridas Thakur, stating, in every moment you take your bath in all the holy places of pilgrimage. At every moment you perform great sacrifices, austerity, charity. You are constantly studying the 4 Vedas, and you are far better than any Brahmin or sannyasi. There's not much mention of him studying the Vedas, but he's fully realized all of the Vedas. And one who's fully surrendered to Krishna understands the purpose behind all the Vedic literatures. What's that nice? Yavan Atra Udapani Savatak Sampalto Decay. One who knows the purpose behind the Vedas is understood to be the knower of all the Vedas. Well, the chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra is only those who have already achieved or have studied all the Vedas for many lifetimes, have realized the purpose, absorbed themselves in chanting the holy name of Krishna. Hare Krishna. If one cannot complete the fixed number of rounds he is assigned, he should be considered to be in a diseased condition of spiritual life. Srila Haridas Thakur is called Namacharya. Of course, we cannot imitate Haridas Thakur, but everyone must chant a prescribed number of rounds. In our Krishna conscious movement, we have fixed 16 rounds as the minimum, so that the Westerners will not feel burdened. Prabhupada said 64 in the beginning. They couldn't handle it. Then he said 32. Oh, it's too much. Okay, 16, but not less than 16, okay? Not less. These 16 rounds must be chanted and chanted loudly so that one can hear himself and others. Haridas Thakur was chanting loudly, 64 rounds at least, maybe more, and kirtan loudly. And it's how the Acharya gives us instruction. The holy name will reciprocate if we follow the instruction of the Acharya how to serve, not by our own concoction. This is the process of parampara. It's the process of being servant of the servant, servant. We become humble more than the straw in the street. We take shelter, more lower than the straw in the street, like Haridas Thakur, more tolerant than a tree. He didn't just tolerate, but he actually bestows mercy upon those who are beating him. This is more than tolerance. Huh? So amazing experience. So here we go. Haridas Thakur Ki Jai, 180 rounds or whatever it is. And we have to follow the great personalities. Haridas Thakur, he was chanting very loudly. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu chanted very loudly. So what more evidence do you want? My Guru Maharaj chanted loudly. We are chanting loudly. So if you want to chant otherwise, I guess you have to join another sampradaya. Because Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Bhakti Siddhanta Maharaj, Srila Prabhupada, Haridas Thakur, they're all chanting loudly. It doesn't mean you have to scream your head off. But it's vachika. There is sound vibration to be heard. You have to hear the sound through the ears and pronounce it with the tongue. Prabhupada says that. Haridas Thakur ki jai. Srila Namacharya Haridas Thakur ki jai. Siddhabhakti, beautiful deity of Haridas Thakur. Keep this always in your heart. Haridas Thakur, where are we now? Okay, this is still in Siddhabhakti. Haridas Thakur said, my dear Lord, please do not touch me, for I am most fallen and untouchable. I am the lowest among men. The Lord said, I wish to touch you just to be purified, for your purified activities do not exist in me. What a loving exchange of humility between Lord and devotee. So perfect. How we respect all devotees. It's such Akshno Palam Twadishadar. And Gata Sangha, it's so rare to get the touch of a pure devotee or the sight of a pure devotee. Lord Chaitanya showing how great good fortune it is. Okay, we'll finish off with the last pastime we're going to mention today, of perhaps the most significant since today is the Tirobhav there in India, at least. We had it yesterday here in Paris, but in India it's today. So the final pastime of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's rasa relationship with Haridas Thakur, at least on the manifest platform, was his passing away from this world. A glorious exit, you could say, in the presence of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his associates. And Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, as we mentioned earlier, was sending daily prasadam through Govinda to Haridas Thakur. And on one day when Haridas Thakur, he was lying down, Haridas was getting old and his body was seeming to get sick. So one day when Govinda appeared with the Mahaprasadam, he saw that Haridas, are you okay, Haridas? Yes, I think really, okay. And Govinda said, I had brought prasadam. And Haridas said, no, I cannot today. Today, actually, I can't take the prasadam. Today, I'm sick. I cannot honor prasadam today. And so he just touched the prasadam, which Govinda had brought, and Govinda returned to Lord Chaitanya. Lord Chaitanya said, oh, what's happening? He said, go, Haridas Thakur is sick. So Lord Chaitanya came there sometime later and asked Haridas, what is your sickness? I heard you're sick. And what did Haridas say? He said, my Lord, my sickness is that I cannot finish my rounds. Lord Chaitanya said, oh, you cannot finish your rounds? No. Actually, my Lord, I have no physical sickness. My sickness is inside, with my mind, my intelligence. Tell me more. What is that? My sickness is I cannot finish my rounds. And Lord Chaitanya said, you have fulfilled your mission to spread the holy names thoroughly, extensively. You do not need now in old age to do this. And Haridas Thakur said, my Lord, please do not put me into illusion. Please do not put me into illusion. And then he went on. I don't know if I got those statements here. Yeah, here. Okay. So this is a painting. This is one of the final paintings. I had this also commissioned in Jagannath Puri, painting of Haridas and Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And Haridas Thakur said, my Lord, do not create illusion. Although I am so fallen, you must certainly show me this mercy. My Lord, there are many respectable personalities, millions of devotees who are fit to sit on my head. They are all helpful in your pastimes. My Lord, if an insignificant insect like me dies, what is the loss? If an ant dies, where is the loss to the material world? Let's see his humility. Lord Chaitanya was saying, because Haridas wanted to leave the world before Chaitanya Mahaprabhu left. He knew that Lord was winding up his pastimes. He didn't want to see the final pastimes. He wanted to leave the world before those pastimes were manifested. Lord Chaitanya said, how I can do that, how I can live without you. You know, my life is depending on your association. He was praising him in various ways. Haridas is replying and says, don't create an illusion, my Lord. I'm a no good for nothing. I'm a nobody. I'm an insignificant ant. What is the loss? You have millions and billions of devotees who are fit to sit on my head. I'm a nobody. My Lord, you are always affectionate to your devotees. I'm just an imitation devotee, but nevertheless, I wish that you fulfill my desire. That is my expectation. And there, another painting. This is in Haridas Thakur's Samadhi on the wall there. You can see it. photographed quite a few of them with like not so good camera, but that's one of the many paintings there. And Lord Chaitanya there holding Haridas Thakur's final moments, and tears coming out of the eyes of both Haridas and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And all the devotees having a roaring kirtan as Haridas Thakur was leaving the world. Let's see. And just before he left, in front of all the great devotees like Ramananda Roy and Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu began to describe the holy attributes of Haridas Thakur. As he described the transcendental attributes of Haridas Thakur, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu seemed to possess 5 mouths. The more he described, the more his great happiness increased. We all get that experience. The more you glorify Krishna, reading the Krishna book, etc., the more the happiness increases. The more we glorify other devotees, the more our happiness increases. After hearing of the transcendental qualities of Haridas Thakur, all the devotees present were struck with wonder. They all offered their respectful obeisances to the lotus feet of Haridas Thakur. And then they had tremendous kirtan. And as Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was holding the divine form of Haridas Thakur was fixed on the lotus face of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, chanting, Shri Krishna Chaitanya, Shri Krishna Chaitanya, Shri Krishna Chaitanya. And at that moment, he left his body, and the Lord Chaitanya picked up the body of Haridas and began to dance, and roaring kirtan all around took place, just like when Bhakti Caru Maharaj left his body. Kirtan everywhere. To the ocean they did go, Lord Chaitanya carrying the body of Haridas Thakur. Actually, it's described, he took the body on some kind of vehicle down to the ocean, and there Lord Chaitanya personally performed, first of all, bathing the divine form of Haridas Thakur in the waters of the ocean there in Puri, like an Abhishek ceremony. All the devotees were drinking that water, there was ocean water, taking it upon their heads, which had washed the lotus feet of Haridas Thakur. And then Lord Chaitanya himself placed Haridas into Samadhi, placing all the items in there, sand, and the other devotees also placed sand into there. And then Lord Chaitanya went begging, just like now we go and we are beggars, we're all beggars for mercy. We have to go now and beg for that mercy, beg for the mercy of Srila Prabhupada, beg for the mercy of Haridas, beg for the mercy of Chaitanya, beg for the mercy of Bhakti Caru Maharaj, that we can become beggars and go everywhere to collect devotees, to bring devotees to the lotus feet of Lord Chaitanya. Everywhere Lord Chaitanya was going. Swarup Damodar then interjected and said to the Lord, I will take over. This is not fit for you, befitting you. Lord Chaitanya did, but then Swarup Damodar completed the collections to perform a great feast on behalf of Haridas Thakur. And there's Lord Chaitanya personally serving the feast. Not a very good reproduction. I'm sorry, I don't know what happened to that one. And my battery is almost dead. Luckily, we're not. Devotee never dies. Who reason ill, who tell that Vaishnavas die while thou art living still in sound. The Vaishnavas die to live, and living try to spread the holy life around. They never die. Bhakti Caru Maharaj is not left. He's not dead. He's completely alive in his instructions. And same with Haridas Thakur. So here's Lord Chaitanya, a great feast. I'm sure you've had this event has taken place, and it will take place again and again to glorify the Vaishnavas of the Lord. So this is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gave his final benediction. Anyone who has seen the festival of Haridas Thakur's passing away, anyone who has chanted and danced here, anyone who has offered sand on the body of Haridas Thakur, anyone who has joined this festival to partake of the prasadam will achieve the favor of Krishna very soon. There is such wonderful power in seeing Haridas Thakur. Being merciful upon me, Krishna gave me the association of Haridas Thakur. Being independent in his desires, he has now broken that association. So we're all experiencing that. The Lord is independent in his desires. And so is the pure devotee. Who knows what they're doing? We are just, what to say, here just praying for their association and mercy. When Haridas Thakur wanted to leave this material world, it was not within my power to detain him. Even the Lord couldn't detain him. No one can detain the pure devotee of the Lord. Simply by his will, Haridas Thakur could give up his life and go away, exactly like Bhishma, who previously died simply by his own desire, as we have heard from Shastra. Haridas Thakur was the crown jewel on the head of this world. Without him, this world is now bereft of its valuable jewel. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu then told everyone, say, all glories to Haridas Thakur, and chant the holy name of Hari. Saying this, he personally began to dance. Everyone began to chant, all glories to Haridas Thakur, who revealed the importance of chanting the holy name of the Lord. And that is the Samadhi of Haridas Thakur in Jagannath Puri. And that's the gate of the Siddha Bakul, where Haridas Thakur chanted. So if we want to enter into that gate of pure love of Godhead, serve the Vaishnavas, serve them with all your heart, and serve their instructions. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Go Premanandi Hari Hari Bo, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna, thank you all very much. I'm sorry to go over time, whatever else it may be. Any offenses committed to any of you, and especially the Bhakti True Maharaj or Haridas Thakur or anyone else, come to that. Hare Krishna. So that's all we'll finish there. There's lots of messages on chat. I don't know if we have time. I'm not in control of anything.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. There are a few questions if you would like to take.
Well, we'll try to go through them quickly because I see 11, or at least there are 11 comments there.
Yeah, I will just tell a few questions because there are many questions. Just one question is from Sham Sundar Krishna Prabhu from Melbourne, Australia.
I know him very well. He's my dear friend. I stayed at his house many a time in Delhi, in Gurgaon, and he takes me to Vrindavan when he was there. We're missing him upside down. I visited Melbourne when I'm there, from Gurgaon to Melbourne. And he and his family are very dear in my heart, and being your dear God brother and God sister. Yeah, I've got it on the screen. I can see it. I'll read it out. If you want to read it, or you want me to read it?
Yeah, you can read, Maharaj, whatever.
Hare Krishna, something or another. Whilst I carry on chanting, many times I lament Guru Maharaj's disappearance. I wish to carry Guru Maharaj in my heart whilst I try to follow his Vani. How to embed him in my heart? You've already done it. With material office work and other distractions, how do I practically carry him in my heart? How do I get over lamentation and tears? Well, do we ever get over it? I don't know. I don't know if we have to get over it. I think we have to absorb ourselves in it, in the real sense of the term. Just try to remember how your spiritual master would like you to behave when you're in the office. Just think how he would. Just remember he's right next to you at every moment. That's all. He's maybe externally left, but he's actually right next to you at every moment. Just remember he's present with you at every moment, whether you're in the office, whether you're in the family, whether you're in bed, wherever you are, he is with you always. And he'll give you the strength. Just try to be conscious of that. You know, it's not that he's only there when you actually physically see him. He's present always. Maybe not physically, but he's present in the heart. So keep that always there with you. And when you're chanting, well, you have to remember also how he would like you to chant. So I don't know. You have to see. He's giving you instructions on that, and you follow his instructions on that. He's your acharya in chanting. We know what Prabhupada said. We should try to focus on the name. It's just like, as I mentioned earlier, we did you know, I don't know how many weeks. We had the marathon, the book marathon, for almost the whole year in 1977. We started probably in March and went right through to the end of December, non-stop book marathon for Prabhupada. Because, you know, he started getting sick at Mayapur in 77. And shortly after that, we started a book marathon, literally. I mean, we're doing most of us were just out distributing books most of the year. So we did what he wanted. We didn't just sit around, crying and this and that, but we dedicated ourselves to what really pleased Prabhupada. So that's how you overcome it. You think, what I can do to please you, my Guru Maharaj, and you dedicate yourself to that. For the others sharing their loving exchange, we feel we also wanted some loving exchange with our spiritual master. For us, the feeling is like a small boy who has lost his father without even actually seeing him and is weeping, seeing the other boys. What is meant by having a father? Marriage. Well, you know, I felt similar to that, to be honest. I did write a little offering. I never did anything with it, but it was kind of along those lines, you know. It's even more lamentable for those who didn't get the association. But I'll tell you one thing, and Prabhupada told us that too, that somehow or another, when that feeling of not having the association or not having that opportunity, it can be even more intensifying and more purifying than those who actually had it. You kind of like, you know, it's kind of amazing how Krishna reciprocates like that you wanted it. You know, it's completely pure. Whatever reason we may not have got so much of physical association as some fortunate souls did, but that feeling purifies the heart to such an extent that you become eligible to really get that association. So don't feel you, we can feel we missed out, and that's a purifying and humbling experience. But at the same time, it's a very spiritual and a very, very fortunate experience to be lamenting, I never got that association. We feel we're nobody. Sometimes we can get proud when we've had the personal association. I know I was a big servant of the Guru Maharaj and this and that. We saw what happened with the Gaudiya Math. So many of Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj's most intimate associates somehow or another lost the thread after his departure. Where Srila Prabhupada didn't get so much time-wise association, was the one who sewed the cloth. The others more or less dismantled everything, but Prabhupada took it and sewed a great cloth, a beautiful cloth, colorful cloth of ISKCON. Although he never had so much direct to say, he was like not a very significant member of the Gaudiya Math, you could say in general. During the time of Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj, and even afterwards, he was just a single man with no official mission, so to speak. But he had made that mission. In the words of his spiritual master, Life and Soul, we associate through Fani. You take the instructions of Bhakti True Maharaj, wherever your Guru Maharaj is, and ultimately Srila Prabhupada, and you make it life and soul. It's not like just by living in the past time. We don't want to live in past times. We want to live in the present. And the present means we follow the instruction, not just dreaming of the past, you know, lamenting, no. You know, I remember the good old days. Well, what's the use of remembering the good old days if it doesn't make good nowadays? It's not much use, just making everyone think they're useless. Bring it alive. Bring Krishna consciousness to the surface. Don't just dig it and put it underground. Don't bury Krishna consciousness in the past. Make it in the present. Life, devotional service is fully alive. Okay, I don't know if this is Graham Collin. I know Graham Collin, who's got another name. It was mentioned that even to see one who has taken shelter of Haridas Thakur is free of material bondage. What does this mean? It's a good question. Even as devotees, we have seen so many devotees who are sincere followers of Srila Prabhupada or Haridas Thakur, and yet we still feel affected by the material energy. Is it a temporary blessing? No, it's not. It's not a temporary blessing, it's an eternal blessing. Even as devotees, we have been to is it a temporary blessing? Perhaps while we look at them. Well, it certainly is a blessing while we look at them, but it's a blessing afterwards also. Everyone who's got the good fortune, just like Prabhupada when he was in San Francisco, I think it was 74, he was giving a lecture at the Rath Yatra. And, you know, and probably not many of you have probably been to the Rath Yatra in San Francisco, and I'm one of those who hasn't been. I do want to go. But in those days, the attendants at the Rath Yatra were tens of thousands sometimes of mostly young hippies. I don't know if you know what a hippie is. Something very extraordinary, Prabhupada said. But hippies, long-haired people who take intoxication mostly, scruffy maybe or what, but intoxicated and engaged in all sorts of things. Maybe with even no clothes on, all kinds of things they did. And they're sitting there in front of the Prabhupada when he's giving a lecture in San Francisco in Golden Gate Park at the end of the Rath Yatra. And Prabhupada's giving a lecture to all of them assembled. They said, all of you who have seen Lord Jagannath on the Rath Yatra cart today, all of you are going back to Godhead in your next lifetime. And that's right there in the database. You can read it yourself. It's not like just a false promise. It's a reality. It may not happen there on the spot, and probably most of them didn't even hear what Prabhupada said. They may have been too intoxicated or otherwise engaged in some other activity. But Prabhupada gave this special mercy. Anyone who sees a pure devotee, they get that special mercy. It may not happen on the spot. Maybe this lifetime, end of this lifetime. Prabhupada in Bombay, he said one time, he was trying to get the life members, Giriraj Maharaj tells his story, he was trying to get life members to help him to arrange Rath Yatra even before the temple was there. He said, Rath Yatra is so important. And many times Prabhupada started Rath Yatra in London before the temple. There's no temple when he started Rath Yatra. Practically, there was only a tiny storefront in San Francisco when he kicked off there. But Rath Yatra is a moving temple. And Prabhupada wanted that Rath Yatra festival everywhere. So when he was talking to the life members in Bombay, Prabhupada said that I want you to arrange this festival. It's so important. Anyone who sees Lord Jagannath on the Rath Yatra cart, when the time of death comes, he said that all the pictures of one's life come up, and boom, that picture of Lord Jagannath pops up. And when that picture of Lord Jagannath comes up, it's like the sun. When you have a film, the old style film, negative film, when it's exposed to the sun, everything is extinguished. So similarly, when that picture of Jagannath pops up in their vision at the time of death, everything disappears. Everything else is blanked out. Only Jagannath remains. So this is a special blessing, special mercy of the pure devotee. It's ultimately up to Krishna, but he reciprocates with his pure devotee. Prabhupada said, it is my desire, it's my desire that, you bestow your will upon them in his poem, Markane Bhagavat Dharma, is the desire of the pure devotee. Krishna is obligated. He follows that desire. So even if we may not see that, we may not understand it, life goes on as normal. So many ordinary people may see a pure devotee too. And devotees may take it familiarly. They get really familiar. It's natural we do in this conditioned world. And they may not take it seriously. But that one opportunity in this lifetime, it never goes away. If it's not this life, it's the next life. But it never goes away. It's just a little time separation, that's all. Just a little time separation. Everything is there. It's like Prabhupada said when he was on the bench, sitting on a bench in New York. Everything's there. The holy, the ISKCON movement, the books, the temples, the restaurants, the devotees. There's just a little time separation. So we always measure things in terms of minutes and hours, days and months. But it's not. It's a different thing altogether. The devotee is beginning of the end. Is return back to Godhead by associating with a pure devotee is assured, just by getting that association. You may have to go through a few bumps on the journey, but it's as good as over. Is as good as over. So we don't have to measure things from an external perspective. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, when Vasudeva Datta was appealing to him to please allow him to suffer eternally for the benefit of all others, let them all go back to God, and Lord Chaitanya said they've already gone by your wish, but nobody will even notice it, because the universe will immediately be filled up with living entities and nothing seems to have changed. It's the soul that goes back to God and not the body. So you're just getting rid, devotees or conditioned souls who come in contact with a pure devotee are then guided. Prabhupada said they're then guided by Krishna, and step by step there are different types of attachments in this world. Krishna arranges situations to remove them, sometimes frustrating them, sometimes indulging them in such a ways that they completely let go of the material world. But that path back to God is no longer, and you can read that in the 10th canto Bhagavatam, 14th chapter, text 8. There's no longer karmic reaction. It is the Lord's personal hand working. So there's no more karma working there. It's not karma that's doing it. It's the Lord's hand to free us of any tendencies we have, any other affections other than pure devotional service. Why and what is the reason for Haridas Thakur to report? Well, we mentioned that earlier on. It was the will of Lord Brahma in one case, and it was the will of the Lord in another case, because his mission was to show that Krishna consciousness is universal, and as everyone practically in this world is born in various degrees of sinful life, to show, and Rupa Goswami also, Sanatana Goswami also, Bhaktivinoda Thakur also, so many great devotees appear to be in families or in situations of non-pure devotional service at different stages of their life for various reasons. And one of the reasons is to show us that don't become negative because we're born in a rotten situation, or a situation of, we're born in a Brahmin family and we're proud, or whatever it may be. Put that aside. Haridas Thakur is the living example. If we take shot of Haridas, we can get free of the trap of identifying ourselves as being Brahmins, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, Shudras, or so-called Western civilized, knowledgeable scientists, or whatever it is, sinful creatures, whatever false identity we have. So he took this lowly birth for that reason, also to deliver countless people born in lowly families to Krishna consciousness. He did himself, Muslim families, to show the process, the whole process of him being beaten in the marketplaces because he was born a Muslim. Therefore, he was punished. If he was born a Hindu, that pastime would not have taken place. Everything is there for the purpose of the Supreme Personality of God, his mission of spreading Yuga Dharma, Harinam Sankirtan. Another one from Shamsundra Krishna. We know Lord Brahma is demigod, and Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, one who goes to demigod is unintelligent. He also got attracted to his daughter. So in one sense, he's not pure. So how come he gets association of Mahaprabhu and gets higher position as Haridas Thakur? How do we understand he is pure, knowing his pastimes? You are aspiring servant. Aha. Well, don't forget, he's also our Paramaguru in our Parampara disciplic succession. And that question was brought up. I think Harry Story brought up. I said, oh, Prabhupada said, well, he's a devotee. he performs these various things for various purposes too. When the acharyas seemingly engage in funny acts, they also have a purpose. The Lord is guiding. When you read a commentary of Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, even his stealing away the coward boys and calves is described there in the commentary, that actually he decided to do this to prove that Krishna's God and not him or Shiva. So there's another aspect of it. It was a purposeful situation. Krishna placed him in this situation for a purposeful reason, to enact a various pastime, even more glorious. Lord Brahma said, let me do something which will cause Lord, my dear Lord, to perform activities even more amazing than what he's already performed. So sometimes the devotees do this. Lord Brahma is not an ordinary living entity. We can't judge him by a particular activity of becoming attracted by his daughter. He had a business of creating the universe, and all the tendencies therein were manifested in various ways from his creation. So that was one of them. He cast off that body. He showed us, cast off that body should that situation arise in our heart, that subtle desire, for instance, in the case of Brahma. In the case of Haridas Thakur, Brahma is showing, Lord Brahma is not an ordinary living entity. Now, I'll give an example. We sometimes hear that Drona and Dara become Lord Nanda Maharaj and Yasoda Mai. We sometimes hear that, but if you read in the purports in the 10th canto, you'll see that it's not like that. It's Nanda and Yasoda become Dara and Drona. It's not the other way around. Nanda and Yasoda become Drona and Dara, not Drona and Dara who become Nanda and Yasoda. Nanda and Yasoda expand in that way to perform particular services for the purpose of the Lord. So they expand as Drona and Dara. And when when Nanda Maharaj and Yasoda actually appear within Krishna Lila, they merge back into those forms again. But it's actually an expansion of them. So one thing is that the Haridas Thakur can, I'm not saying this is the case, he can expand, as the Lord himself says, in all of my incarnations, you personally appear to assist me in my pastimes. The devotees expand. These internal, pure souls, the eternal associates of Lord, have Shakti Tattva potencies, and they're not Jiva Shakti. They have the potency to expand in various ways to assist the Lord as and when necessary. That's one way of looking at it. Another way is that Lord Brahma wanted the association of Haridas, and he became eligible to have it because he's a great devotee. He's not an ordinary living entity. He spoke the Brahma Samhita. He's no ordinary soul, directly born from the lotus stem, coming from the navel of Lord Vishnu. He's not an ordinary living entity. He's empowered by the Lord. He's sometimes known as a Guna avatar, is an incarnation. The Lord appears in that potency of creativity potency because he's so qualified. He's such a great devotee. Okay, and he shows certain examples sometimes for other people's benefit, just to show that even Lord Brahma has to be careful. Even if you think you're Brahma, that doesn't mean you're infallible. So he's an amazing personality. But aside from that, even Lord Brahma wants the association of Haridas Thakur. Now, Lord Brahma's body is not gross like ours. If we want the association of Haridas, it has to be a physical thing. That's how we see it. But that's not the case. They associate on a subtle platform with Haridas Thakur, unseen to those who only have gross vision. The Lord Brahma's body is made of spirit, of intellect. It's a subtle body, and we can't see what's going on. We can only see externally. We have such external vision, so it's not quite what we see it externally. But we should learn from the example. We should also hanker for the association of Haridas, even if we can't get it externally exactly. We can associate with him by following his footsteps, so to speak. There's another one here from Parul. Guru Mas also has a deity of Srila Haridas Thakur, whom he used to take great care of. I'm not sure if I don't know if you're referring to me or what. I don't know, maybe it's somebody else, but it does apply to me. I used to travel with the deity of Haridas Thakur for many, many, many years. And now Haridas Thakur is, that particular deity is residing with some disciples who are taking care of him in New Mayapur in France. For various reasons, I just found it rather difficult to travel with Gorni Tai and Haridas Thakur. And, my lifestyle, I'm pretty unregulated and pretty disorganized. I just found it rather difficult to do that. So now Haridas Thakur is living in New Mayapur in France. So if you want to see him, you have to come there. Hare Krishna. Well, that's it. Is it? No, one more. How do we know we have achieved Namabas stage in our chanting? How do we know? Well, it could be answered from different points of view. We have the association of devotees. The association, Lord Chaitanya went to his spiritual master and asked his spiritual master about his own chanting. So we can qualify that. The different symptoms. You can read in Harinam Chintamani, you can read in different places, in Prema Vaivarta, you can read many places, the symptoms of Bhakti Vinod Thakur, Amrita, whatever it's called. You can read there the symptoms of Namaparad, Namabas, and Shudanam. You can read them there, what the differences are. But the devotee always thinks, I'm in Namaparad. We don't think, oh, now I'm in Shudanam, oh, now I'm in Namabas, we always think we're in Namaparad. We don't think, oh, now I'm in Namabas, now I'm risen above Namaparad. The devotee always feels like that. I am an offender. I am an offender. Even Haridas Thakur was thinking, I am an offender. Even though he's the personification of Shudanam on a perfection, not just Shudanam, but the actual fruit of Shudanam, relishing rasa or pure love of God. But, we always think we're offenders. So we don't think, now I'm on Shudanam. But the external aspect of Shudanam is that we are, of Namabas, the external symptom, well, let's say the external aspect of that is that you've received instruction from someone who's in Shudanam, pure chanting of the holy name, to chant the holy name without offense. We've received instructions from them. And the practical aspect of it is that we're making conscious endeavor to avoid the offenses while chanting and consciously trying to be attentive to the sound of the holy name. So this is external. And by applying the external aspect of Namabas, we may be still internally offensive, and there may be sometimes fall downs. And there may be some internal offensive mentality or attachments internally. But we're consciously making the endeavor, and we're serving. Bhaktivinoda Thakur describes the transformation between one stage and the other is the opportunity to serve a devotee who's in Shudanam, who's chanting as Shudanam. So we follow their instructions, we serve them, and then by their grace, gradually one transformation takes place from Namaparad towards Shudanam through the stage of Namabas. But we don't think we're so proud to think that I'm now chanting in Namabas, but we should be performing the activities which are the activities given by the pure devotee of the Lord, which will cause such a transformation of one's chanting or one's consciousness by following their instructions, so that gradually it's not that, we may even, it's almost imperceptibly happens within one's heart. That one material desires become distasteful. They may still be there, but they become distasteful. Attraction for hearing and chanting about Krishna starts to grow more and more. Appreciation for other devotees starts to grow more and more. Eagerness for service becomes more and more spontaneous. And, these are symptoms which we may experience of, some things that may take place in Namabas. And externally, we want to always be engaged in devotional service according to the instruction of the Shuddha Nam Bhakta. And then gradually we take place. Well, by externally performing these activities, gradually it helps to transform the internal consciousness too. And we become more and more decline. We have more and more disinclination for offensive behavior. We become disgusted when we start thinking offensively towards a devotee or critically towards a devotee, or attachment to material desires, or we get doubts coming in our hearts. It's like distasteful, become distasteful, and we just take shelter of the holy name. So this is a practical, you can say, a practical symptom that at least we have some faith in the process, and we have some faith in the instruction of the pure devotee, and we're trying to apply it in our lives. So this is some symptoms of Namabas, you could say. There are many others you can read in Harinam Chintamani, and then other places I've mentioned already. Okay, Hare Krishna. So where do we stand? Prem Avatar?
Yes, Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Are we going to go ahead as a team, as all the devotees, all the disciples? Are we going to work together to please Bhakti Caru Maharaj and make sure that his desires to please Prabhupada are spread all over the world? Or are you going to sit down crying forevermore? What are you going to do?
Yeah.
Huh?
We
What are you
want
going
to
to do? Take heart. Stand up, be bold. What is that? Bhaktivinoda Thakur? Or was it Prabhupada? Be bold, move forward, go forward. He's with you. Just go forward and preach. Don't sit down and just talk and cry. That's the place for everything. But the main thing is to go forward and preach Krishna consciousness boldly, as Bhakti Caru Maharaj wanted you to do. Just do it. Just do it. Prabhupada did it. And he wanted everyone to do it. He said in his offering Virara Astakam, we were reading this morning, Prabhupada was saying that if all the disciples would just go out now, don't just sit around ringing the bells and maintaining ourselves. Go out and preach. Go everywhere and make disciples. He was saying like that. If only we would do this. But unfortunately, not everybody did it, or not everyone does it. But that should be our desire. How I can actually serve my spiritual master in his absence, physical absence. And that's how we really get his association. His association is in the heart, not just physical. That's great to help to embed that in our hearts, but that we can't depend upon that. We can depend upon the instructions. So take them to heart. They're the essential way of serving the spiritual master. Take it to heart. Hare Krishna. Okay?
Yes, thank you very much, Maharaj, for your most wonderful association on this day.
Thank you for yours.
And very nicely you connected the life of Srila Haridas Thakur with some of portion from His Holiness Bhakti Caru Swami Guru Maharaj as well. And thanks for your blessings. By your blessings only we can try to follow his instructions and continue our services in the mission of Srila Prabhupada.
You're all very fortunate. There are tens of thousands of devotees all over the world, I'm sure, who are blessing you all, far more valuable than anything I can do. And not only in this world, in all over the universe, not only in the universe, in the spiritual world also, who are eager to share their blessings on you all. I'm sure Srila Prabhupada, for sure, is primary amongst all of those. And all the acharyas, not only in ISKCON, outside of ISKCON, the various sampradayas, everybody. Don't think you're alone. You're definitely not alone. No way. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Okay?
Thank you very much, Maharaj.
Thank you all very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. His Holiness Bhakti Caru Maharaj ki jai. Srila Haridas Thakur Tirobha Mahamahotsav ki jai. Gaur Premanandi.
Hare Hare.
Hari
His Holiness Janananda Swami Maharaj ki jai. Hare Krishna Maharaj. Thank you very much.
Oh, Mr. Prabhupada, Haribol.
Hare Krishna.